We're gone. Hey, everybody. Welcome
Hey,
to Thursday.
this
You were frozen
yeah,
for a
this
minute.
long distance. Am I back?
You're back.
No. Oh, I'm
You're
good. All
back.
right. Well, I'm glad we're here. We had some tech trouble, but we're here and we're ready to go. So, listen, we are continuing with Black History Month and all the things Black history, and the evolution of certain things in our culture. And so tonight we're going to talk about infamous, all famous soul food. And we've all been there. You go to your big mama's house or your mama's house, and maybe even your friend who can throw down and really cook in the kitchen. Shout out to Crystal Rose right there. Your
Facts.
taste buds get really happy just thinking about what is about to happen. That is food. When you get excited when somebody says, "We going over so and so's house to eat." It is a cuisine deeply experience. It's very important to us. And it has a story as rich and complex as flavors of the food. And I bet some of y'all don't know all of the history.
Sorry, she's freezing. So what she's saying is we're actually going to be talking about soul food today. Again, soul food is a huge part of our culture. There's a large, vast history that goes along with it. And if that sounds cool to you, if you are a foodie like I am, a foodie like we are foodies, then you should definitely stick around, yo, because this episode is for you.
Hi, I'm Pam Williams, a mother.
And I'm Jessica E. Williams, a daughter. And this is a mother and a daughter truthful chat, where we discuss our 35-year multi-layered relationship.
We've been through so many ups and downs. Not only are we family, but we're business partners in the high-stress world of event planning and production for short films.
We've also shared the same therapist for over 10 years. What some people call codependence, we call collaboration.
So join us as we share stories from our lives,
Have candid conversations with other mother-daughter duos,
and shed light on the roller coaster ride of being a woman while raising a woman.
What it do, y'all? Welcome to Truthful Chats. Ding. This isn't meant to be a solo episode, but I'm really tired of the devil being in the monitors via the interwebs. My mother is in the backwoods of Northeast Texas, and so sometimes the internet don't be doing what it needs to do. But we kick on, we press on. We may get her in here. You may just be kicking it with me. I don't really know. We'll see how it goes. Anyway, if you're new here, welcome to Truthful Chats. If you've been here before, welcome back. We appreciate you being here. Um, so if you're new to Truthful Chats, this is a weekly podcast series that we do here at the Create Generational Wellness brand that we have and we started. If you're not familiar with that term, Create Generational Wellness, you shouldn't be because we made it up. So if you hear somebody in the street using terminology that doesn't belong to them, I expect you to nut if you but right? Not really, but also a little. Anyway, here at Truthful Chats, um, well, actually, I should say here at Create Generational Wellness, we usually have a theme of the month, and then weekly Truthful Chats is where we unpack that theme a little bit. So, as Pammy mentioned, it is the most wonderful time of the year, at least for us. Shout out to Christmas and all the other holidays and all of that. But it is Black History Month, okay? And it is such an exciting, rich time. We get excited every year. If you're new here, we are very proud to be Black. We are very proud to be Black women. And that goes year round, okay? That goes without saying. But in the month of February, it's leap year, okay? So we get an extra day. So it's going to be extra melanated drip on these here episodes, okay? If you were not here with us last week, we did an amazing episode called Living Black History, the Evolution of Love. So we went through um, our history in terms of what Black love look like in America up until now and the things that we're facing. And we're going to do the same thing on today's episode, which is Living Black History, the Evolution of Soul Food. So it's super, super, super exciting. Okay, so let's start at the very beginning, a very good place to start. As the psalmist Fraulein Maria once said. Okay, so soul food is particularly special because when you understand the connections between cultures, multiple cultures, right, and the survival and the creativity within soul food, particularly as it relates to the African American experience, it's amazing. Africa is so culturally rich and diverse, and has an incredible fire history. Period. Full stop. That's the end of the sentence. Because often during Black History Month, we tend to think that we started as slavery, which is not true. We were thriving in beigbomb.com, and that's an old millennial term. And all the things in between prior to the colonization of the continent and the transatlantic slave trade. So we've been really pressing that and jamming that into everyone's head for the last two episodes that we've been doing this because we think it's important. We don't want to. Slavery is important, but it's not where our people begin. And so the culinary history is especially interesting because African cuisine has gone all over the world, and it has gone all over the world because of the forced translocation of the African diaspora through slavery. So, and with that is not just the transportation and shipping out of humans around the world, but on those ships, a lot of cuisine from Africa came um, to the Americas, to the New World, to the Western Hemisphere, etc., because said colonizers and, you know, the African countries and civilizations and tribes that sold our ancestors into slavery. Though that's a point of contention, but the real like crux of that, because white people will try to make it seem like it's our own fault for selling our own people into slavery. African slavery was very different than what these people was doing. Okay, so when Africans heard, you know, these are probably your rival tribal members or whatever, and the Europeans want to put them in slavery. That what their concept was of slavery versus what actually happened when these people got to the Americas, they wasn't ready for that. So we try not to harp on that too much. That's something that white people use to divide us. And ain't nobody got time for that. So a lot of culinary traditions transferred over to the Americas, to the Western Hemisphere, to the Caribbean, et cetera, because not only were people transferred, but so were culinary delights and things. So there's a lot of key ingredients that actually come from Africa um, that most people wouldn't think. But rice is one of the things. There's a lot of rice staple dishes, but that comes out of, you know, the Gold Coast. Um, Okra, yams, which are different than sweet potatoes, and we will get into that because I actually just relearned that today. Even hot sauce, like our desire to want to have hot things in our palate, and hot sauce in our bag, swag. All of it are steeped in a past that intertwines Africa with the Americas. So rice is a staple of a lot of African countries. And then they figured out a way to, of course, they shipped it, right? But they also figured out a way to transplant it and grow it in American soil through the slave trade. And when I say they, I mean Black people figured out how to engineer and grow their traditional homeland staples here in a foreign country that they had never been to in their entire lives. And so it's a cultivation that became like a really culinary cornerstone of the South. We can name like hella dishes that depend on rice, right? Gumbo, jambalaya, um, anything made in South Carolina, really. There's all kind of things that have to do with rice. Okra, which we hear hails from Ethiopia. I don't know if I can confirm nor deny that, but it sounds right. And this is super versatile, right? We put it in a lot of stews. definitely in gumbo. We eat a lot of fried okra. So it thickens soups. It's actually a substitute for coffee, which I did not know. And it's an integral part of Southern American cuisine. Like I said, we fry it. We put in a bunch of things. Some people like literally hate okra, and I get it, but it is indigenous to the motherland. Yams, which look like really huge elephant feet. Sweet potatoes are the offshoot of that in the Americas because it can't be a yam because it's not directly from the continent. But we learned how to cultivate a yam adjacent in a sweet potato. And then hot sauce. There's a lot of, again, the African palate has a lot of tomato things going on, peanut things going on, a lot of hot spices. And a lot of that is traditionally African things. So let me see. I think Pammy's back in a better internet situation. Maybe.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you and I can see you.
Oh,
And
this is
we've
so good.
begun our conversation.
All right, I'm gonna click. I missed the clink, I think. Hey, how are you? I'm
Clink.
clink clink. I'm shouting out Dallas since I'm still in Texas, as we can see.
Remix. I told them.
From the glitches. But let's keep going. So now imagine you're standing in the kitchen of a southern plantation during the era of slavery, and the roots of soul food, what we
Which
will come,
sounds actually not that great, but
I
when you put
know,
it like
but
that.
this is where soul food started. It is taking shape right before your very eyes because all of the origins of soul food trace back to the ingenuity of the enslaved Africans who used whatever resources they had available to turn less than ideal ingredients into a unique and comforting cuisine. And we've all heard this. The forebears of soul food work with what they have, whatever the master let them have, what was left over, the worst cuts of meat, the chitlins, the hog maws, the pig feet, all these
I
things
like
that
pig feet. Sorry, that was a side
pig
of that.
ears, whatever. This aspect of Black culinary experience testifies to the history and resilience of us as a people, overcoming, innovating, even in the middle of scarcity, and the influences from Africa, Europe, the Americas, South America, the Caribbean, all that melded together as slaves transformed these leftovers into nourishments. And those things then became staples. And then the slaves supplemented the pork stuff with harvested vegetables, grains, caught fish, wild game that they caught or whatever. And this new kind of style of cooking brought about staple dishes with pork and greens, but also adding other things in. Um, so, there were some celebrated African American enslaved chefs, such as Hercule and James Hemings. That name sound familiar to it? It should. These are the brothers
It
of
should.
Sally Hemings, who, for those of you who don't know who she was,
Was
that was
Thomas Jefferson's
Jefferson's
child's concubine
child,
that
concubine, slave,
he
wife.
kept
Did he ever marry her?
in the antebellum South? Absolutely not. If you
I
guys
thought
want to
they,
watch no, maybe in Paris, but doubtful.
yeah, in
If you really
Paris,
want to
maybe.
watch the history of this, there's a great movie with Carmen Jogo and that white man from Jurassic Park whose name I can't remember. It really romanticizes their relationship, but you have to keep in mind Sally Hemings was a child, like 14, 15. So these are her brothers that Thomas Jefferson, I think, took to Paris and like put
Oh
on. So
yes,
these were
that's how
his
all
Negro
this.
cooks in America, and
Yeah,
then he
so
took
he
them to
took all
France.
their exotic dishes over to France, and then Europe was all enamored with what these,
Black
black slaves
people, black chefs was making.
could make. Right. So it created an indelible mark on American culinary culture, and they were kind of like the first celebrity chefs, right?
Private chefs,
So,
indentured private chefs,
so if you
enslaved.
look at the recipe books, though, as historical records of this new food, white folks started to cherish this and call it pepper pot and okra stew, and they preserved it in their family recipe books. First indication of cultural appropriation, if you ask me.
And why
Um,
is that? Because the slaves cannot be credited for any of their ideas. So now
exactly.
this becomes Meemaw and Nana's recipe, but your white
American
grandmother was
Southern
not.
cooking.
So
American Southern cooking.
I'm looking at you, Paula Deen, because we all know y'all wasn't doing none of your own cooking. Okay. So all of your traditional American Southern recipes that your nana, a black woman was nursing
Working
your
in
baby
that kitchen.
and and feeding you and your family. Okay, so if you ever learn to cook, that's who white people was learning to cook from. And listen, I know during Black History Month, people could be like, "Why are y'all so angry? Y'all are so angry with us because you lie, because you lie a lot." And I think every year when Black people
We find
decide,
out
like,
more and more, don't
we
we?
find out more if you have, let's just take the context of race out of it. If you have a person that you deal with on a consistent regular basis and you trying to be cool with them and you find out that pretty much everything they've ever said to you is a lie, but every single year you find out that they lied about something different, you like, is anything we've ever shared, is any of it true? You too will be upset. Like today I just saw a video, now see what Juanita sent me, that said that a black man really has the first invention of an airplane. It was with balloons and the whole thing, and he went to go. He had created this whole thing, and he was going to
Oh
put it
no,
in the
not the
world.
Wright brothers.
No, and I always felt that in my soul about the Wright brothers. Like I was like, I don't really believe this. I think somebody black came up with this first, but then they didn't get credit for it because of the times and enslavement. This black man had really created a whole airplane, and he went to go show it off at the World's Fair in New Orleans. And he spent his life savings. He put that thing on the train, and do you know it never got there at all. It
Oh
was
no.
completely dismantled. It was disheveled. It never even saw the light of day. So now they just now being like, oh, we found these plans and these things. And it wasn't as sophisticated as the Wright brothers, but he patented it in like 1906 or something. So this is the kind of stuff we talking about. We just finding this out now in 2024. But anyway, I digress. Whatever
Right.
white people are saying is they recipes are not. That's all I'm trying to
Right. So unless it's raisins and potato salad, but we won't go there. Anyway, post
say. Ill, ill,
emancipation
ill.
society perpetuated these myths about happy, loyal, passive, enslaved cooks, so happy to make masses food and all that. But it
No.
minimized their achievements, struggles, and the pride that was deeply woven into their culinary contributions. And so, ironically, while these skilled cooks laid the foundation of American cuisine, their white owners, of course, often receive the credit, distorting the narrative of African American cultural ingenuity. It always amazes me too that the audacity sometimes of white people to let
The
these black
all
people that they are enslaving cook for them. Like, did they not think
caucasity, actually.
did they not think that poisoning was a real thing, or that we would know how to do it, or we weren't smart enough to consider doing it? I just really think
All
that
of
has
the above.
always amazed me since I was a child, that nobody thought they were going to get poisoned or whatever. But anyway, I digress. You go.
Yeah, so it's really one of those things where we could get into it. If you haven't seen Origin, highly recommend. Okay. It was a lot the first watch, but it really breaks down caste and all these systems that we tend to just think are racist, and they are. But there's also levels and layers to it. But anyway, I digress. So as we're continuing to explore the history of soul food and talking about the history of soul food, America, anything American really is a hodgepodge of a lot of things. It's a mixture, okay? I know that the whiteness that Europeans made up when they got here as a way of superiority, um, that's what they call American. Is that's like the colloquialism is general whiteness. But everything in America is a melting pot of a lot of different cultures, whether they really want it to be or not. First of all, y'all stole this land from natives. Okay, so native cuisine is definitely
Right.
in at play here. Central Africa, West Africa, Western European. It's a hodgepodge of things, right? And so a lot of what is defined as African American food is really sort of a conversation of all these different. things and cultures and expressions all sort of coming together. Um, and using whatever ingredients are available to you to make that thing do what it do. And African Americans, like I said, really are geniuses in that they were stolen from their homeland, brought to a place they had never been in their entire lives, forced to work, and yet found a way to sustain themselves off of trash food and figure out a way how to grow their native staples and beef up their food so that they could survive individually and collectively for generations. Like that
Yep.
is a incredible feat. You couldn't drop me off in Arizona right now. That's not even that far. And me be like, let me figure out what I could grow here. I would be
Oh
like,
Lord,
well,
come
I
on.
guess I'm just gonna die. Or if you drop me off in the Philippines, I'm not gonna be like, yeah, let me figure it out. Like the fact that they were able to do this is like mad crazy. And that they were able to like discover what climate, what soils, like is different than home, but we can make it work. You know what I mean? So being able to figure out how to grow
Mm,
like
mm.
incredible vegetables and these things that actually have nutritional value. I don't think you understand. People are working in the fields for hours. People are not allowed water breaks. Like, so you have to figure out like a workaround of like, how are we going to keep our strength up?
Yeah,
If you're
yeah,
pregnant, you're eating multiple, well, you're supposed to be eating multiple times a day, but you're probably not. So, how do you beef up your food enough so that you can support the growing fetus? Like it's just a whole lot of things. Um, so anyway, saying that to say black people are amazing, and that's sort of the first farm to table concept that we've seen where, now everybody's into like organic, whole grown, fresh farmers market, non-GMO, like black people did it first, okay? And it was under dire conditions. But as we move out of slavery into post emancipation, um, we start to see food really become a reflection of endurance and creativity under the next set of oppression that black people will be under Jim Crow. I told you, remember last week I said, if you wasn't here, I said white supremacy transforms better than a damn transformer. Okay. White people, they always, the powers that be gonna be like, oh, we was doing this. Now we gonna shape shift into this. So after slavery is abolished, post emancipation, right? Now, black people are fusing a lot of different culinary designs, right? So you have, of course, all the African traditions. You have a lot of immigrants coming in, so the Caribbean foods are starting to pop
Mm-hmm.
off.
Mm-hmm.
Southern American crafts and traditions. So it's like a whole new sort of rise to cuisine that just kind of reverberates throughout, I would say, our culinary experiences even now. Like, I love me a good paella. That is not technically an American dish, but it is probably African, right? It's rice, it's fish, it's all the things all
And
mixed
it's
together, which
Caribbean.
is a cousin, right? Which is a cousin to jambalaya and gumbo and all of these dishes because there were African slaves taken there too. So once you start to like put the the culinary patterns together, you're like, oh, okay, this is all uniquely African. And so the cuisine goes from down south up north because everybody's free now. Of course, some people stay, they sharecrop, they really kept that um, connection to the land and farming, and because they didn't have no other skill set, really. So a lot of people ended up falling back into sharecropping, which was just like slavery 2.0. Like you would grow some crops and then white people will pay you a little bit and then you continue to feed them. Like they just kept finding ways to like revamp slavery. But
Every I get out, they try to pull me back in, right?
every time I try to leave, something keep pulling me back, me back. Shout out to Chinky and Tyrese. In a negative fashion. So a lot of these southern cuisines actually make it up north and start to become like all the rage in the north because I'm sure all the white people heard about their southern cousins that had all these black people cooking for them. All these people started moving up north in the Great Migration. So cities like Detroit, Chicago, the Midwest, even coming out west to California, like a lot of these traditions of Southern cooking are making their way across state lines, and are kind of becoming these. Obviously it's Jim Crow, right? So segregation is still a thing, like a lot. And so you have black people living in these communities all together. So everybody got to eat. Okay, that's just a consistent across the board
Yep.
thing. I don't care when you was born, what you was doing. Everybody got to eat. It's just what we need to survive. And so black people are living in these segregated communities, sharing recipes, continuing traditions, doing all these things that they, maybe did. Maybe you came from Arkansas and now you in Chicago, but you meeting somebody from Georgia or from South Carolina, where like now everybody is sharing their culinary
Fusion.
dishes and experiences, yeah, and fusion with each other. It's kind of like how like we have all these different types of ways to cook barbecue. Like that came from somewhere. It's like black people in Kansas was doing it different than people in Oklahoma was doing different
Memphis,
than people in
different in people
Texas was
in
doing
Texas.
different in,
Yeah.
yeah. But I think
Carolinas.
once everybody started moving, up north, then you have like a hodgepodge of traditions, which is, how like American Southern cuisine becomes all the rage because white people are usually sneaking to them parts of town, um, eating food, or especially in the jazz era, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
white people were sneaking to clubs in Harlem and eating. Because white people was raised on black food. Let's just call it what it is. So, you know, southern whites was looking for that up north, and northern whites who had heard about southern cooking was like, what's really good. And so, you have neighborhoods of people are frying chicken, making greens, you know what I mean? Like everything is starting to translate. And then you also have mom and pop shops, restaurants, you know, vegetable stands, butcher counters, fish markets, like everything where that's sort of American, right? And now you could be as racist as you want to be, but you love somebody's food that's not your own. That's I don't think there's any more American thing than loving food that doesn't belong to your culture. And you can hate the people, but you be like, but the egg rolls is hidden, or I love sushi. You know what I mean? Like, or whatever the thing is. Um, and so a lot of this is preservation of Southern traditions, Southern roots, a lot of African American preservation of culinary um, dishes and things of that nature because people got to migrate and go around. Then people started, of course, putting their own twist on stuff, right? The Pullman porters, that's also how a lot of cuisine traveled, right? And that you had these black men from the South making bomb food again for white people on a train,
Trains.
which is
Hmm.
again a revamped version of slavery. Um, you can leave, right? You can get off, but it's still black people catering to white people. And so the 1900s really becomes like an expression of soul food, and that again we're preserving the essence of tradition, community, um, sharing of different culinary experiences, and
It did
white
have
people
some
miss
problems though,
slavery.
because
They want that
the
nostalgia. They want that
realities,
nostalgia.
the realities of urban living and limited access to some of the traditional ingredients, and the fact that they were working in the factories and this, that, and the other, and they had a faster paced life. They had to kind of adjust all of that into the Southern culture that they were used to. And then again, that was another way they had to adapt and become resilient and figure out
Okay.
how do they still keep those traditions going, even in the midst of that, you know?
And you got to make sure don't nobody bomb your restaurant or
Hello,
because
burn it
remember
down.
we talked about this a little bit last week, but economic jealousy is real. And we all
Yep.
know black food sells well to this day. But in Jim Crow times, being economically wealthy, particularly at cuisine, even though we all know black people can burn, right? That could be dangerous for you. So the economics of food as mobility for black people economically is also very, very much a thing. But again, people got to eat. Okay, so they're gonna pay for your hush puppies. They're gonna pay for your pecan pies. They're gonna pay for your yams. They're gonna pay for your barbecue. Okay, nothing is more American than sharing each other's foods. Okay,
Yep.
it's just not.
Um, and the establishments weren't just places to eat; they were connections to what your Southern roots were. They were connections to the community. Um, they,
And I think you should say, well, since you said that, I just want to say like they're also like there's a lot of people I think that as I've like done plays or like read about this period, the Great Migration was actually really hard for people to like
yeah,
up and leave home and leave everything they've ever known. And some people came and couldn't find work, so they went back. Or, um, some people maybe they're the only person from their family that left. So home like eating food has a way of creating nostalgia for you, or
yeah,
helping you connect with people from back home and like doing these things. So food really became literally comfort food, right, for people from slavery on into now this new huge transition that you're making. So if you go somewhere and get some food, even now, if I have some biscuits that remind me of my grandma, like I just feel better about my situation. Stuff can be crazy, but there's like a level of comfort to having food that reminds you of home or somewhere safe, or someone that you're familiar with. So I think continuing to emphasize like there's a lot of good that came with this, but there's a lot of bad that came with that. But also food makes the journey to make things better, I
I
guess.
kept thinking
So
about Two Trains Running when I was
oh yeah, for sure,
thinking on
for
this
sure.
today, because that
That is an
whole
August Wilson play
play,
for those
August
of y'all
Wilson
who do
play,
not know.
takes place in one of these kind of places we're talking about, a mom and pop restaurant where you can get a bowl of beans and rice for 25 cents and two pieces of cornbread for an extra dime or whatever. So these were places that regular people went to regularly every day. You see the same people in there because
Mhm.
it is family, it's connection.
It's
So
community.
it's community. Yep. So throughout the, Jim Crow era and the push for civil rights, the evolution of soul food now starts to mirror the societal shifts. The dishes tell different
Mhm.
stories. They become beacons of cultural heritage, comfort food, adapting to the changing ingredients and all that's going on in the Great Migration. Now, the actual term soul food rose to prominence during the civil rights and Black Power movements of the 60s and 70s, because say it loud, we was black and proud about everything. It symbolized nourishment not just for the body but the soul during a time of turmoil and social change. But it still drew on the resourceful and resilient cooking of the enslaved African cooks. So,
Oh,
as the civil rights movement grew and inspired, a fight for social change, soul food became an emblem of pride. Just like I was saying, black say a lot, I'm black and I'm proud.
black and
Now
proud.
we're not like, oh, these are the leftovers. We're proud of what we created. We're proud of this food that is a
Making
part of
cornbread from
our heritage.
scratch.
Yeah, it becomes now more and more important. And then as we move forward to the present, we've seen it being revitalized in various places in history. There's now exhibits, about Black food, a place at the table, the influence of Black cuisine, and then another exhibit, African American making the nation's table. They're shining lights on all these substantial contributions that African Americans made to the cultural landscape, a culinary landscape. You finding out Augustus Jackson was really the father of ice cream. Nearest
Ice
Green,
cream, y'all.
the
Shout
first
out to Uncle
recorded
Nearest.
African American master distiller, showing how deeply soul food is interwoven into the African American experience. He taught Jack Daniels how to make some whiskey.
Exactly. I was gonna say, see, and this is where I want to okay. So this black man had perfected. You heard what she just said, okay? The foremost premier distiller in the Americas, okay? He taught a white man how to do this, and the white man went ahead and took that recipe and has made a fortune. Everybody knows about Jack Daniels. What you don't know about is Uncle Nearest. And Uncle
You're
Nearest is
just finding out.
way better. It's way better. It's superior to the Jack Daniels. But again, when you are a person who is not in charge of yourself, in charge of your own destiny, in charge of your own idea, you're not even a person. Your ideas can be stolen from you. And that is really why doing these kinds of things, like talking about this history on podcast or TikTok or making movies and films about stuff, I think they should do more movies and films about this kind of stuff. Um, because there's an erasure of black contributions. Okay. There is not a thing in the Americas that Black people have not had their hands in. You just don't know about it. Okay. Or again, every year we finding out, dang, that was something
Hidden
too.
figures.
Like that was
Hidden
upsetting
figures.
all by itself. We got y'all to space. We got y'all into the stars. And you just now want to tell us that you done had
Who
Lance
else some at?
Armstrong and everybody and their mama up on the moon. And I said, but Black women was doing the math. Is that what you're saying to me? Anyway,
The
it's
math
the
was mathing.
erasure. It's the erasure of black contributions that is upsetting and problematic, and why every Black History Month we go, really, bruh? Okay. So we really got interested in this. I told you we're secretly no, I think we're proud nerds. A lot of this history, and if you want to like
We are
learn more
proud
about
nerds.
this, I think we're proud nerds. If you want to learn more about this, a lot of our knowledge about this came from we have not read the book, which I think we're gonna do. But there is a book called High on the Hog by Jessica B. Harris, who is a culinary historian, the author of the book High on the Hog, and she used to be the travel editor for Essence magazine back in the 70s, which was like probably a fly, super cool job. And as she was traveling, she started to, and like having all these different foods and doing all these things, she started making connections between Black American dishes and the African diaspora around the world. And so she wrote a book about it. And then they made a Netflix show about it, which is one of my favorites. And it is hosted by Steven Satterfield, who is a food writer. He studied as a chef and he was a sommelier for about a decade. And they're like super close. And so they've endeavored to tell the story based on Dr. Harris's book. And now they just done it into a series about exactly what we're talking about, tracking the history of African foods from Africa pre-slavery through slavery into emancipation, um, and throughout just the diaspora and the experience. They talk about Black farmers and them still having a connection to the land and growing food because, again, white supremacy shapeshifts. We all live through Flint, okay? We all know that people have poisoned our food supplies and done things to us previously. We know half the food we eat is not real. We know that food deserts, which I don't think that's the proper term anymore, but I can't think of what the new term is for it. But it's pretty much the fact that they're trying to starve us out, right? We don't always have access to the freshest foods in certain neighborhoods, which is, dare I say, food segregation? Maybe that's what it's called. But so having community farms, really being on the cusp of growing, well, not even on the cusp, inheriting the tradition of growing our own food, going back to
Yeah.
Black people being in
Yeah.
touch with the land, is really actually an act of resistance and an act of survival so that white people can't just feed us anything and then we die of diabetes or a heart attack or whatever because they still are giving us trash food to eat and expecting us to make them culinary delights. So it goes from everything. We talked about Thomas Jefferson. They talk about the chefs we mentioned that were Sally Hemings brothers. And so it really just like shapes America's narrative around cuisine and how it relates to African history. They start off in Benin. I actually watched the pilot again today. It was very informative. Um, and then they just track through, and it's regional, so they go to different places throughout the U.S. in season one and season two. Season two actually just came out this 2023. Sorry, and the first season came out in 2020. So highly, highly, highly recommended. You will be upset. You may shed a tear because there are so many things that, much like country music, shout out to Beyonce, Black people have just contributed to, and white people would rather not tell you that part. They just want to act like they just came up with everything and everything. It's American boxer braids and all these
No,
things that are traditionally Black that just all of a sudden they just finally know what cornrows are, right? Or they finally have discovered gumbo, or whatever it is that they just think they going Christopher Columbus. Um, so anyway, highly, 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 highly recommend that show. Um, And it's only like 4 episodes a season, I want to say, and each episode is about an hour. So it's like 8 hours out of your life. Um, so check it out. But moving on, um, I think it just goes without saying we've had an unmistakable, undeniable impact on American cuisine. And as we move forward into our modern times, we still love soul food very, very much. We very much still love soul food. I think we've discovered that some things about it needed to be updated and upgraded. I mean, we can't just eat. Girl, something is buzzing.
Sorry.
Sorry. We can't just eat pig fat. You know what I mean, and all. You know what I mean. I think as we started to discover more about our health and want to treat ourselves better, we was like, yo, we love this food, but we got to do a little twist. Okay. So we're sort of in an era where we are redefining um, soul food for ourselves in a way that ensures that we don't die at an early age. Okay. So farm to soul, this is what we were talking about. Black people getting back in touch with the land, continuing to farm either on private farms or in community gardens, which a lot of people are. That's like the new thing, which really kind of isn't new because it actually started during um, the civil rights era, and definitely in the 70s when we was like, we gonna grow our own food with the Panthers for sure. They have community gardens. So it's like really getting rid of all this canned processed food that they be trying to give us that we all know is poisonous and not good for us, and looking for organic, more sustainable foods that we know people grew with their hands. It's not full of pesticides and craziness, but you could just walk down the street to your local garden and pick up some produce instead of going to the store and buying things that's you don't know how long it's been there, you don't know what pesticides they used, and you don't really know if it's killing you. Really, at the end of the day, um, leaner meats. Okay, leaner meats. Trying to cut out some of the fats. Not eating so much craziness. Just better choice, better quality meats because we have a choice about that now. We're not just throwing out whatever mass is giving us. And then more vegetables. Okay, more vegetables. Thank you for the likes on the Facebook. Appreciate it. Um, more vegetables, more lean proteins. Um, still getting these, traditional recipes going, but maybe a little less salt, a little less things that are detrimental to our health. And I think that points to the future, right, of us trying to honor our bodies and our temples and our souls, um, and making sure that we survive as a people based on the food that we eat, and especially taking into account now we have a choice about the food that we eat. It's not just we're throwing you whatever's left and you make it work. It's like, okay, no, I can make a decision. I can make this, but I can make this healthier and I can make this smarter. And I think that's also honoring the ancestors, and that's what they would want, right? And then there's a lot more vegan options. Okay, the vegans is on the come up in general. I think, I mean, I can't say this full force, but I think probably in Africa people eat a lot more vegetables than we give people credit for. I think we consume a lot of meat here just because it's America, and we're gonna have a burger, we're gonna have some turkey, we're gonna have some steak, we're gonna do all of that. But there's a whole vegan movement. The Rastafarians been on it, okay, forever. Cicely Tyson lived 150,000 years to honor the ancestors because she was all vegan everything. Okay, so you didn't even know Nana was really over 100, because that's how bomb she looked and how much she was hell bent on doing a vegan diet, and I would say that it did her quite well. So yeah, and that's not always something we had a choice about doing, right? Because you need protein, especially if you was working in the fields or working all day in the cookhouse or whatever your said duties were. So sometimes you had to like but bulk up on the protein. But now we're finding different ways, and just because we have the education to do it, so I think that's pretty cool. So we upgrading, y'all. We upgrading and we updating the culinary traditions of our ancestors.
Very true.
Do you want to do a
Um,
profile now?
yeah, we can. You got a picture for me?
I do. I was just waiting for you.
All right. So we wanted to talk about somebody, our current, as we say, profile for this week of somebody who is currently making Black history. And
Black
it
history.
is Black History Living Legacy, gentleman by the name of Kwasi Kwa. I believe that's how you pronounce it. And he is a chef partner in a restaurant in Dorchester, I believe it's called the Comfort Kitchen. And so he honed his craft in restaurants and catering for 12 years. In 2016, he launched the Chop Bar pop up with now Comfort Kitchen of Dorchester's Shelley Nazon as a way to explore global street fare. The pop up was hosted in multiple restaurants in the Boston area, including Dudley Cafe in Roxbury, where uh, Bipla and Quasi again crossed paths after working together at the High Rise Cafe and Bakery. He's a native of Ghana. He's a native
Okay.
of Ghana.
Girl,
I
where
was
is
thinking
Guana?
Ghana,
Ghana.
a native of Ghana. I was thinking about the African diaspora. I'm like, okay, here we are blending this African culture with American, African American, and again, still keeping those traditions of bringing that over and making it part of this new cuisine. He's passionate about connecting with people through the food that reminds him of his home, and he shares his passion with others through local cooking demonstrations and competitions. At Comfort Kitchen, again, Dorchester, Massachusetts, Quasi collaborates with a talented culinary team to develop dishes that celebrate the untold stories of ingredients from the African diaspora and the spice trade. Aside from English, he speaks his native tongue. How do you pronounce it, Jay? Twi? Yes, his
That
native
sounds
tongue,
about
Twi,
right.
and
We
has
don't know.
also picked up
Correct
Spanish
us.
and
Oh well.
Portuguese through the years of working in the kitchens. He lives in Cambridge with his wife, Rita, and their two cats. And so he is preserving our traditions, creating generational wellness around our soul food heritage, and making new pathways, forging new pathways for us forward. So that's something we have to do as well. We have to keep doing these things that are going to preserve our traditions, family reunions where you pass down recipes through generations, shared new and old, different parts of, the family lives here. They bring, so and so's Big Mama's pound cake, this, that, and the other. My sister in law has the best recipe for homemade eggnog you've ever had in her life, and it's been passed down through her generations for at least the last 100 years. So remind me if you're ever at my house around Christmas time, I'll make you some. Church picnics, cookouts, these aren't casual get togethers, but they also foster community, continue food traditions that we've been celebrating throughout our history. Um, in addition, there are quite a few organizations doing this kind of work. The Ray Charles Program in African American Material Culture at Dillard University. Scholars and students work there to preserve the culinary heartbeat of New Orleans. The program breathes life into the soul food and showcases that rich history, peppered with French, Spanish, and Creole, all influence of Southern cooking. There's a great book by Michael W. Twitty. He's the author of The Cooking Gene, and he's also committed to preserving traditional methods of food preparation. Um, I recommend that. And then Toni Tipton Martin is from Baltimore, and she chronicles the untold stories of Black women in the kitchen in numerous books about the movement. And she has a youth project organization called Sandy, and it brings generations together and teaches them about culinary knowledge and African American food. So it's up to us to preserve our heritage because we know what's trying to happen with school books and this and that and altered history. So embracing education is critical. We have to provide awareness and respect in our minds for these traditions. There's some community programs that can be modeled across the country. Akron, Ohio Urban Agriculture and the Detroit People's Food Co-op. Both of these are demonstrating the need for community-driven agriculture, like Jessica was talking about, growing your own food. They honor ancestral farming practices and create access for growing relevant crops, ensuring that the flavors of the past continue to be a part of our African American food culture. Um, Crescent City Farmers Market in New Orleans. The local farmers and food purveyors are not just vendors, but they're storytellers. They preserve the history, engaging with the customers over tables that have food, farm to table food again. And this exchange gives a chance to have real time conversations about food sovereignty, sustainability, sharing history of sharecropping, and shedding light on the current plight of farmers. And then there's a big, national celebration. National Soul Food Month is in June. So look in your local community for things that pertain to that, and be a part and take your children. Let them know and understand why we eat the way we eat and how it has evolved and changed over the years. It's a good history lesson.
Now, why they decided to put Black Music Month and Black what is this Black Food Month now? National Soul Food Month. They just put
It
all the
goes
black
together.
things in June. But okay, we'll take it. We'll take it. That's an acknowledgement. Okay, so I learned something. Actually, no, I didn't. Bishop, isn't that thing you went to? Since you're here, hello. Um, I think that thing you went to was in June, wasn't it? It's a lot of black. We got a lot in LA. We got a lot of block parties and all kind of family gathering events, and our radio stations be throwing block parties. It's the summer, but it's a lot of food
Taste of
elements.
soul, all
So,
those
yeah,
things.
taste of soul, chicken and biscuits, gravy and waffles, whatever those twerk fests are that have food food elements going on with them too. So anyway, wherever you're gonna find black people, you're gonna find good food, period. And you should, because we worked hard for it. We worked hard to preserve, um, to literally survive. Like we had to figure out how to make food that would sustain us as we continue to thrive in a country that hasn't always uh, loved us, wanted us, has used us up,
Taking
and
care
thus
of us,
far,
any
right,
of
and
those
thus
things.
far, our food has followed us through our trajectory of history in this country, and like us, gets better and better with time. Okay, we will not regress, we will progress, and we'll get better, and so will our food. So whether you are supporting local black farmers, enjoying traditional family recipes, upgrading family recipes, adding some multicultural influences, soul food dinner is just not about feeding your body, it's about feeding your soul, because a lot of the food that we're consuming also comes with like great conversation, some trash talking, you know what I mean? Like there's usually music, it's a vibe. Like there's a whole essence that goes around soul food culture. And it really is about our soul as black people, as a community, the resilience that we've shown, the history that we have, the cultural identity and legacy that has followed us throughout our journey in what can be this super raggedy country. And I say that because
Super.
I don't like the way they're doing Fannie Willis today. I don't really like it. I don't want to get too sidetracked, but the fact that they got a black woman telling the sordid details of her personal life about a dude she had a situationship with that was her colleague, and trying to say that she's not qualified to prosecute Donald Trump for committing an actual crime is ridiculous. During Black History Month, I just thought it was ridiculous. Okay, that's fine. I got off my chest. Anyway, our food is a journey through our roots, also our tribulations as they continue. I hope Fannie Willis is eating the most bomb dinner tonight to give her comfort, since these white people are really trying to play her. Um, and our trials and tribulations continue, right, from slavery on, and across the evolution and the landscape of our time here in this country. Food has nourished us, food has sustained us, food has kept us, and we are grateful. So let's keep Doing this, man. I'm not a person that really cooks, but I enjoy great culinary cuisines and delights.
It's
All
your
my
other
homeboys,
happy place.
all my homeboys can really cook right now, and to say I'm grateful is an understatement. And they were like, "Hey, when are you gonna make mac and cheese?" I said, "The bar's been set so high. Why would you want me to do it? You don't need me to contribute. What you're doing is fine. Keep that going." Um, so yeah, let's continue to honor the traditions of our ancestors in the very basic ways of how we feed and nourish ourselves every day, feed and nourish our families, our people, and pay homage to our ancestors as we kind of, take the reins and push on forward into the future and create generational wellness on a gastronomical level. I think I like that. I think
I
that's
love
good.
it.
I think that's
I love that. That's a good ending.
Anywho, that's been the show for today. We are going to come back to you next week, of course. I think we did love, we did food.
We're doing church next week.
Are we doing? Bishop, you gonna come on next week? You gonna be a guest? You want to talk about the Holy Smokes podcast? You should. Um. Anyway, whatever we're doing next week, you will have no idea what it is. If you are not subscribed on the YouTube channel, follow us on IG, liking us on Facebook fan base. We are at Create Generational Wellness on all the platforms. We will be right back here next week for another truthful chat as we continue to celebrate Leap Year Black History Month. And we're gonna come back to you with another topic about how great our people are and why should we be celebrating our contributions. And we should never be erased from anyone's histories at all, anywhere in the
Not
world,
never.
but particularly not never, but particularly in the Americas, because to quote Nicki Minaj, who made a terrible diss record to Megan Thee Stallion. I heard it this week, and me and Matt were in shock. It was really petty. But anyway, to America, we say as Black people that y'all are all our sons. That was the clean version. Y'all are our sons. So y'all should put some respect on our name, in the words of Birdman, and stop trying to erase us from your history books, from any kind of part of American life, because all of it originated from us, and we are also the original peoples. So with that, we will bid you adieu until next week. Y'all have a good one,
Have
and
a
we'll see you
great
next week.
weekend.
Bye.